Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's go over what to expect as we pretty much head into November and what next week could be a pretty big week, not just for Tesla, I mean, especially for Tesla, but just for the markets in general, right? We have the presidential election. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it is on Tuesday. When is the American presidential? I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, November 5th. So yeah, sit back and enjoy the show for that one. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, regardless, I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. And let's talk about Tesla stock and all that good stuff. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live. That link is down below. For just $3 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, post updates, options flow, technical analysis, etc. on Tesla and sometimes other stocks as well. Pretty much every single day, the market is open. So definitely check it out. Or for $5, you get access to all that. Plus, NVIDIA daily updates every single day. So yeah, check it out. Link is below for that YouTube membership. But let's just jump right into it. Tesla closing the day down, unfortunately, ever so slightly, closing down about 0.35%, which compared to the market is going to be an underperformance. The market definitely in the green today, right? With Tesla closing, I want to just say below 250. And that's the thing I don't like, right? The fact that I'm saying below 250 is the part where I'm not excited about that, right? And I want to start things off by going over to the weekly chart. And the reason I'm not excited is because you can see, but closing below 250, right? So you can see the previous pivot point was around this kind of 252 to 250-ish range, right? Back here, you can see. And you can see we've had many issues closing above this area, right? We've had issues closing above this area many times in the past. So let's take a very quick look, right? So back here, you can see, right, is where we created the pivot point. And we can see it took us 3 weeks, arguably if you count the first one, almost 4 weeks of trying to get above, which it did, but more importantly, trying to close above, right? So that's an important area. And the thing that makes it more interesting is the fact that we have this area here, not only a few weeks ago, where we did close above it. We finally closed above it. That's the first time we closed above it. For next week to go a little bit higher, just to then actually close back down below, back below the last week's close, and then look what next week ended up having, right? A very, very red week. Now, I'm not saying this will play out in the exact same fashion, but it seems pretty damn similar in the sense where, again, last week, bam, nice looking candle, beautiful looking candle off of the earnings, nice closure, even higher than the last two major closures that we had, right? Which is, of course, this week here and this week back here, right? Great. And what do we do this week? Well, again, we went higher, just like we did this week. But ultimately, we also closed below that level once again. And this is the part that makes me a little bit nervous, I guess you can say, right? This is the part that gives me a little bit less confidence, personally speaking. Again, this is just my perspective. I could be completely wrong. Maybe Trump gets elected and Tesla moons to 400 on Wednesday. Who knows? But strictly off of how I'm looking at it, literally right here, right now, that's kind of what I'm seeing. And it's not a very confidence-inspiring close is essentially what I'm trying to say. I definitely wanted to see at least above 250, right? That was my target I was aiming for. We didn't get it. So I'm not happy about that. And that's kind of what the weekly chart is kind of telling me, which, again, if this some sort of pattern is anything to play out like the one we're pretty much forming now, very, very similar, there is a chance that we get a potentially, not very good next couple of weeks. And, we come back down to about the 230s, worst case scenarios, back even into the 220s, right? It really depends, honestly. This election is, of course, going to be a big one, right? Naturally, I mean, Tesla, the stock has kind of become a Trump stock, right? It is what it is with just how literally balls to the wall Elon is in politics right now and, supporting Trump. It's pretty much a Trump stock. If Trump wins, I think Tesla, honestly, I think it should do fine. I see no real problems. If Trump loses, or if there's any hints over the weekend or on Monday that, hey, you know what, maybe the victory for Trump isn't as convincing anymore as it maybe people once thought or whatever. The stock, it potentially may have a little bit of issues, right? It is kind of a Trump stock right now, which is not really sure how I feel about that, but it is what it is. So watch for that moving forward, right? That is something to watch out for sure. But strictly off of technical analysis, let's talk about that. So we have this middle trend line that you can see here, which, you can argue was the trend line that supported us all the way from these levels here. Again, this is a little bit different than when I initially had it drawn from way back when, right? Initially, I had it drawn something like this, right? Remember that? Remember this one? And then we kind of broke down below. So, technically speaking, on my original trend line, we are well below it. But this one you can see is drawn a little bit differently, which actually finds support pretty much where the bottom of the day was roughly. So that is just an area to look for. Now, again, I wouldn't take this trend line too seriously. This is more of just like a kind of like almost like a what if scenario, if that makes sense. I wouldn't take it too seriously because again, this specific trend line, like I just showed you, you can draw like 5 different ways and they all will probably show you different things. So just, take that into consideration. But as it stands right now, hey, it actually worked pretty well and it actually did find some support down here, which isn't too bad. So watch for that. But the things I'm not liking is the fact that, again, like I said, on the weekly, including for the daily, we are closing below that 250 range. Not a big fan of that, right? We have, of course, the BX trender just consistently making lower lows, and I wouldn't be surprised if the red band comes in on the BX trender. Honestly, potentially even as early as Monday, if Monday is also just another day of potential weakness, right? So watch for that as well. Now, bringing out the market bias and of course the bands, or not the bands, the both of the bias or the bands for trend, essentially, they're both green. So I want to make this clear. Tesla is still on the daily, in my opinion, Tesla is still green. It's still in a bullish momentum type scenario, right? Even if it moves down even further, even if it comes down into the 230s, I actually still view Tesla as being bullish on the daily, but it's important that we pretty much hold that 230s-ish range because, again, if we do not, that's when Tesla, in my opinion, starts getting risky. That's when it can potentially really start getting bearish. That's when the bands will start turning red. And if we lose 230s, and honestly, like worst case scenario, a quick maybe, like massive red sell-off into the 220s, like mid 220s, but then I'd want to see a pretty strong bounce from there. That would be like the worst case scenario, while still maintaining that bullish thesis, right? Like I said many times before, if I take away these bands for now, right? If we bring out the Fibonacci from that recent swing low to that recent swing high, which again, okay, I'll say this after. Let's finish this thought first. We have, of course, that 618 Fibonacci at 235. And of course, we have that 786 to the 826 Fibonacci, which is like that kind of, potentially like true value zone down in the mid 220s. These are the levels that I'm eyeballing still to the downside. Like I still want to see one of these levels breach, or not breach, but hit, right? Ideally 235, but again, worst case realistic scenario while still maintaining a bullish thesis will be at that mid 220s, where if we do get there, I'd want to see a bounce pretty aggressively and pretty quickly, to be completely honest. That to me will be more of like a flash crash into a flash buying opportunity. I think it'll be pretty quick if it happens, if we do end up going that low. Now, one thing I want to say is I would find it very, very hilarious if Tesla just somehow substantially sells off from here, and this will be another time we have entered this area. Every single time we got to this area, the bulls have been very excited, yappering all across Twitter or X about 400, 300, etc. And I'm not saying this time, it'll actually happen. It might, you never know. But I would find it quite comical if this is the third time now that we come up to this area, the third time where the bulls are just, again, overly excited, calling for their $300, $400 price targets, just for us to reject yet again. That would be, to me, very, very amusing. I'm not going to lie, because that, you would think they would learn at some point, right? But we'll see. We'll see how this plays out moving forward. But again, the way I look at it, just really simply put, I don't like the fact that we're below these levels, right? Now let's go to the 1 hour chart. Let's go over the bands here as well, right? You can see, I mean, both of these bands essentially serve the same purpose. You can see they even turn red and green at almost the exact same time as well. But the point I'm trying to make here is both of these bands are obviously red on the 1 hour chart, signaling the fact that this breakdown that we had back here, obviously, well, it turned them both bearish. And then, as long as these maintain red, I don't see why Tesla would make any move up higher. Or at least I don't see why I would want to buy any of the moves around this range until we come down to my personal targets, like I said, which is going to be somewhere around that mid 230s, or potentially as bad as or as low as the mid 220s, which again, to me is going to be more or less a flash crash if that were to happen. But that's kind of what I'll be looking at, right? And again, that's one of my criteria is whatever happens first. Either Tesla makes its way all the way to one of those levels where, okay, fine, even though the bands will probably be still red, I'm getting at least, a better risk versus reward type entry on my, on the shares that I'll be buying. Or I'd want to see Tesla essentially really just turn these bands back to being red on the 1 hour chart. At some point, whenever that might be, whatever level that might be, I don't know exactly when. Maybe we don't go to 230s, but then we still turn these back into red or green, at some point, maybe on Monday or Tuesday or something like that, right? So essentially, whichever comes first is where I will personally be a little bit more excited and enthusiastic about entering a trade on Tesla once again and entering shares. Otherwise, I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens, right? Especially with such a massive election, which could be a very nail-biting election for many reasons, let's just say that. I see no reason to rush into this as of right now, right? Again, I'd want to see one of those criteria is met. I don't see any of those criteria is met, so I'd want to see how that plays out. Now, granted, with that being said, right, looking at the 1 hour chart, just, maybe taking away the bands for now, at the other indicators, Tesla is showing some bullish divergences, and it is extremely oversold on some metrics. For instance, you can see the BX trender, despite us selling off, the BX trender has essentially been making higher lows, and also the green band has been forming the whole time Tesla's been selling off ever since, well, not that much longer really, but pretty recently. You can see here. But same idea with the, what's it called? The RSI, right? Same idea. As Tesla from back here is essentially making lower lows, the RSI is actually kind of slowly starting to make a bullish divergence with higher lows. And then, of course, you have the stochastic down here, which is just scraping the bottom of the barrel of oversold territory. So the 1 hour, again, keep in mind, it is just the 1 hour. Don't put too much weight into this. If this were to play out and we were to play out this bullish divergence, there's a chance that all it really does is bring us back into this market bias up here, sitting around the mid 250s. Kind of like this, and then we ultimately still make our way back down, right? So that is still the possibility, right? So you don't want to get overly excited about this, right? It's just a 1 hour chart. It's not some crazy long-term thing. It's just more of a short-term thing. But if you're someone that's playing maybe some short-term trades, hey, that's something, that's potentially an opportunity presenting itself. So just watch for that moving forward. But again, until these bands overall turn red, I still view the overall trend on the 1 hour still to be to the downside, even if we get this little bounce back up to about the mid to low 250s, I don't know, maybe as early as Monday, right? So that's kind of the main way I'll be looking at this moving forward, right, for Tesla stock. So just, watch for that, let that kind of dictate for you and let that play out for you as well. In terms of options flow, Tesla is actually going to be in the more bullish flow, only 6 million, so nothing too crazy to really write home about. And if we go over to the options flow, take a look at how maybe the options flow looked at towards the end of the day, see if anything was interesting towards the close. And as I'm looking at it here very quickly, I'm honestly not seeing anything really worthwhile mentioning towards the close. Unfortunately, I'd want to see a very large premium with a very short strike. And a daily above the ask. I'm not really seeing any of that right now. So unfortunately, the options flow is not giving me too much information. So we'll have to go strictly off of technical analysis. But again, looking at the daily chart, the true support for Tesla, in my opinion, does sit down somewhere in the very low 240s to about the mid to high 230s. Like I mentioned many, many times, with the worst case scenario being a potential flash crash all the way down to about the mid 220s, which if that were to happen, I would want to see it get bought up pretty damn quickly, like intraday as well. But yeah, that's essentially what I'm seeing, and that's kind of what I'm expecting. Now, one thing I want to also very quickly mention is going to be the indexes. Now, the indexes, I'm not going to lie, not looking hot, right? And this is why another reason I'm not excited to go long here, right? Literally the only positions on my trading account, my main account I'm holding that are long is Google, which I'm up. I actually ended up buying almost the low of the day. I'm happy about that. I actually bought in lower on Google this morning than it was prior to the beautiful earnings that it posted on that massive gap up. So I'm very excited about that. I'm very happy about that purchase. So I'm holding that still, which I'm up on so far. And I'm actually holding Disney, believe it or not. I'm actually holding Disney. I think Disney is looking pretty solid. It's been holding the levels I wanted to hold so far. And it's pretty much exactly where my average is right now, to be completely honest, right? This is pretty much my average, literally right here. So I kind of like the way Disney's setting up as well. It's actually setting up a potential rising triangle here. You can see, right? Same highs, higher lows, nice little rising triangle. And the bands are both green on Disney as well, which I also would like to see. So yeah, I actually kind of like the way Disney and Google are both looking. That's pretty much the only positions I'm holding going in. And the reason is, again, like I said, the SPY and QQQ, I'm not a fan of the way they look, right? Pretty simply put, I'm just not a fan of the way they look. I wouldn't be surprised if these bands honestly begin turning red pretty soon, because, what do? We ended up on the SPY, at least, massive rising wedge, gap down below it, had a nice potential reversal today, sold off the majority of it, which I'm not happy about. As you can see, it almost came up almost to perfection to that 21 EMA. Again, you want to remember the SPY and QQQ, they do respect that 21 EMA. That is something that they do respect. Below it is bearish. And not only did we gap down below it, we came up to essentially retest that almost to perfection with a pretty substantial rejection. Same with QQQ. Exact same scenario. Zoom out over here really quickly. You can see nice little rising channel, or not channel, but the trend will just say that we had. It was pretty much a rising wedge, really. I mean, you can really just look at it in this kind of situation right here. Bam, nice little rising wedge. Obviously, we broke down below that on this green one right here. And then what do? Right? We ended up coming back into it, pretty much retested that breakdown of the wedge on the QQQ and the 21 EMA. Also a nice little rejection. So until the indices can get back and close back above that 21 EMA, honestly, I'm not feeling too bullish about the market right now. This is not kind of, what you want to be seeing as a bull right now. This is more of a bearish thing. This is what the bears want to see, to be completely honest. So yeah, watch out for that. And, this doesn't help my Tesla thesis as to why I'm a little bit hesitant here, right? I'm not overly optimistic, right? Despite me being in Google and Disney, I actually think they're holding pretty well, to be completely honest. But yeah, just all those things together, I'm a little bit hesitant. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit hesitant. So I'm just waiting. I'm being a little bit more patient, and I'm just letting these kind of, the cards to really kind of show themselves to me before I get more excited about entering a bit more heavy into trades. But yeah, all that being said, thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.